Hey, Scott, do you have any expectations for your children this year?
Oh, do I have expectations? Clean up their room, get good grades on homework, make sure that they clean up their table after they've eaten.
Okay, hold on.
Make sure they get their shoes back where they're supposed to be going.
Okay.
Be nice to your sister.
Why don't we talk about this? That would probably be a good idea.
Okay, let's do that.
Well, today we're here with Scott Vermillion. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well,
it's good to be here.
So, Scott, this week you taught on expectations that we'd have for our children.
I did.
And, all of us, I think that's a lot of our psyche is to think about these things and kind of reflect on them a lot. Tell us, kind of what framed this discussion today.
I have a little bird in here, so don't worry about that. We'll just take that out in the editing. The reality is that when we have a child, that we expect so much, right, Jeremy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we, from the time they're born, they're the most precious things that we could ever imagine, right? And we think this little bundle of flesh and bones is going to be the next president and, solve world hunger and, get into Harvard and do all these great things.
Or maybe just pick up their shoes.
Or pick up their shoes. At some point, all of those expectations start getting down to the brass tacks, right? Just make my life easier.
Just clean up after yourself.
And I think that's the point. Like when I find that my expectations are unhealthy for my kids, it's when I expect them to make my life easier.
Oh, okay. Well, tell us a little bit about unhealthy versus healthy expectations.
Yeah.
Are there such things as healthy expectations that we should kind of focus on and really use as our parenting guideline?
Yeah, I think there are. And to me, the story that helps me sort all this out is the Genesis story.
Mm-hmm.
The creation story, Genesis 1, 2, and 3. And in there, I just find God really being the grandparent and showing us how to live in a world with others, especially children. That we can absolutely adore and love.
And in that story, one of the things you reflected on in class was beautiful was he allowed them to fail.
Yes.
He could have stopped them. He could have done what we would have done as parents, right? Jump in.
Right.
But why didn't he? What was the point of that?
I think that is the hardest question. Why didn't he? Because I find myself intervening and trying to cut off their failures before they happen. I've got 2 middle schoolers, and I want them to get good grades. They're capable of doing that, and so if they don't turn in something, they get a 0. It's just a 0.
Yeah, and that reflects badly on the Vermillion family.
And that's ultimately what I have to wrestle with: is it her or is it me?
It's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard because we don't want them to suffer the consequences of their failures.
Right.
But sometimes,
and so let's be honest, does God lose sleep over the fact that, man, I must not be a good God because I created something that failed and turned away from me? I don't think he's once regretted it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we play with. It's a difficult reality for us, and we challenge ourselves. It's like, I must not be a good parent because my child is failing at something.
Yes.
And I think love in our world, this side of heaven, demands that kind of suffering. Like, we're going to know God better as we watch our children fail, because he has allowed us to fail. It broke his heart. Let's be honest. He wasn't just up there going, oh, well, whatever, it doesn't matter. It totally broke his heart to watch children, his children, who he created in his own image, to choose to take on that image by a completely different way, by disobeying him.
And the beautiful part of your message today, and I'd like you to expand upon it a little bit, is the opportunity we have as parents to reflect God's image by the grace we show during those consequences.
Right.
And that's hard, but can you talk a little bit about
Yeah, so, this is something I'm working on. Like, there's no perfection here. This is my current challenge, is not preventing the failure. Being upfront, like, hey, there's a tree in the middle of your room, and I know you're circling it. You shouldn't eat that fruit. There's consequences.
We've had the dialogue.
Be clear about that.
Right.
There are consequences for the way we live. But not to intervene and say, unless they're, like if they're running out in the street, you don't let them. They can't take their life. But if we allow them to fail, even morally, in this consequence, that they feel, they go into hiding mode, right? Just like Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
And our job isn't to bust down all the forests and pull them out and say, you did this, boom, boom, boom. It's the easy way, right?
Yeah.
Because that just shames them more and it doesn't release them. Our job, I think, is to follow the Father's way of doing it. It was, where are you?
Where are you?
Ask the question, you know, what's going on? And in those moments of seeing our children's failure, to really hone in on, where are you? You know, where are you now? Where did it get you? That choice that you made, how did that propel your life?
Yes.
You know, how did that make you feel? And chances are, they're going to learn from that.
Yeah.
And
because you bring it to light.
Right.
You're actually showing this is what's going on, and let's talk about that instead of just. So often, I think even as adults, we wrestle with these things in the dark.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where the evil one wants us, right? Because he can manipulate those thoughts. But the second we give our children the freedom to bring it to light, then all of a sudden you can work with it. You can deal with it.
Yeah.
And then we as parents, as you said so beautifully, can show them the grace that God showed us through that process.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about Genesis 3 is that God answers not just with cursing, he answers their shame by creating clothing for them. And it was not fig clothing. That's what they chose. This was animal clothing. So we know there was a sacrifice. So imagine God taking one of his own animals that he created and killing it. The first thing that died was an animal on our behalf. And that plays out, you know, when we get to Jesus, we see that God takes care of all of our sin by sacrificing the thing most precious to him, his own son. And I think as parents, we play that story out when our children fail, is that we need to learn to sacrifice for them in some way, you know, whether that's our own image of what we think our family is, you know, perfect and we have no chinks in our armor, or if it's monetarily, our children broke stuff. You know, I mean, I'm replacing a lot of things these days. You know, things are lost and forgotten. I don't know how many things, or school lunchboxes are littered in the hallways that are my children's that have left there, and we don't know where they are. But there are so many things that we're going to have to undergo in order to say, I've got to sacrifice in this moment. Right. And that's hard because we want them to learn by giving them punishment. And we don't have any sacrifice, put it all on them. But that furthers the shame, and I think it distances them from us. But also it gives them that understanding of who our Heavenly Father is. Yeah,
and just by showing that grace, we get to experience the grace that's been reflected upon us. We get to give it to them. But it's an intentional act. It is something we have to stop ourselves in the moment, or at least I do, which is stop myself in the moment and understand the grace that's been shown to me, understand the opportunity to not shame, but to bring light to a situation, and then understand how to let a child experience the natural consequences.
Yes.
And especially as our kids get older, I think, and as they get into that mode where we're eventually going to launch them out into society as functional people. Maybe.
That's our hope, isn't it?
Yeah, possibly. So I think in this message of expectation, it's just a beautiful opportunity for us to really, in this time and season of our lives, to really experience God's grace and to give that grace and to give that opportunity for growth and development through our own natural consequences.
Excellent. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for sharing this week.
Yeah, awesome. And let us know how you guys are doing with this parenting thing and how you guys are setting up your children by sacrifice. So if you've got some ways that you're doing that, put it in the comments below, and we'd love to learn from you.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great week. Perfect.
Hey, I think that was good. I am great. So sorry about my phone. I am shamed.
Oh,
I am shamed by my phone. I hope you show me the grace of...
Those are the funny things, right? Those are the things that make these things really good.
Because they're real. Yeah.